What's popular, YouTube? Another day, another demo. Long we have away. I don't have a rhyme this time around, but this one is for. It's finally for the. It's for Hampus's favorite play. It's for the player that we've talked about as the most underrated player. That's right, the guy who wears the glasses, the man who has a death note himself. It's your boy AMANEK. Oh my God, is the guy we're going to do the demo on today. And it has been roughly 8 to 10 months since we've done an AMANEK demo, so it's about damn time we revisited this beast. And when better to do it than to do it on LAN? He did it versus Gambit here at IEM Cologne at the last LAN that just ended. And overall, oh my God, didn't have incredible stats overall at the LAN, but in some of their very important matches, including the one we're about to watch here, Series versus Astralis, and then this Series versus Gambit, AMANEK was a key player and a star player all at the same time. Now, I brought up Hampus, and that's because Hampus went on HLTV Confirmed, and he said about AMANEK.
I think AMANEK is the best player in this team.
And, Hampus might be trying to be a little bit of a hipster with here's the thing you didn't expect me to say, but, here's a good reason why he's underrated. But at the same time, you know what I mean? We know, anybody on this channel who's been around, we know, all right, what I tweeted out 5 to 6 months ago, if stats didn't exist, AMANEK would be the best player on G2. I kind of did mean it. When I watch AMANEK play, he's probably the most impressive player I've ever watched in a demo, just individually, and that's outside of the actual kills that he gets. So that's, of course, what Hampus was talking about. My suspicion with the Hampus comment specifically is that because he is kind of the AMANEK of his team, that he really holds AMANEK in high regard. And I think one thing that really applies very well to AMANEK is the saying that we've all heard before, is that what was the saying? A thief thinks that everyone steals. And that's to say that the first person to call out somebody for doing something nefarious or subversive or tricky is the guy who's capable of doing it himself, or the guy who knows how to do it, the guy who is kind of the crafty guy himself. And I think that phrase is perfect for AMANEK. Okay, somebody who is always on the tricky angle, he's always on the weird flank. He's got Mac 10 one round, op the next round. He's entering one round. He's baiting the next round. He's very, very hard to pin down and to put in a box and be like, this is the kind of player that he is. The best word I could use to describe AMANEK is crafty. And I think that exact same definition could apply to Hampus as well. And I think that's why, when Hampus thinks about AMANEK, he thinks, man, AMANEK's a little bit of me. So I understand where Hampus is coming from, and of course, Hampus is probably the most underrated player on his own team. But I think at this point, both of these players have gotten some credit recently and have both put up good results for their teams and clearly helped their teams improve a certain degree and are kind of looked at with a little bit more reverence from other pros, the community in general, even if the stats always don't quite reflect it. Now, we have to really give credit to the fact that a player like AMANEK is able to have big impact and some huge matches on a team where there really couldn't be less space. I mean, we have one kind of role player on the team in Jax doing the entry work, and then you have Nico and Hunter, who will never not be core star consistent players. Potential for both of them to be in the top 5, and if G2 have a good year, we're probably going to see Hunter, certainly in the top 10 with Nico in the top 5. And then you have AMANEK, who is opping now and is hybriding on some maps and primary opping on others. In general, we look at him as an opper at the moment, and he has to be able to kind of carve out a place on a team that has so much talent on it. So, of course, here are the IEM Cologne matches that we can look at. And there wasn't a great final here. The G2 got 3-0'd, but I really don't know what to say about this one because I felt like when we were watching it, it was really just about is Simple going to get his 4th ace of the tournament and set the record and win after having his best performance ever? It really didn't feel like G2 had a real chance before the game started. It felt like this is Navi's story to tell. They're the best team right now. This is Simple's best event of all time. So it was kind of hard to even pay attention to what anybody else was doing because of, how much this was about the story of Simple and Navi. But in the semifinals, this was an incredibly close match. We had G2 barely pull one over Astralis, and AMANEK was a huge part of that game. And then in their quarterfinals match over Gambit, over Gambit, there was an incredibly close map to close it out where Nico got a 1v1 in the last round of the game over Shiro, who's tucked behind a box on a site, if you remember. But in the first half of this game, and overall, AMANEK was a top performer here with a 1.51 rating on Inferno. And what I really wanted to look for with AMANEK was a T side over a CT side. I wanted to see a very strong game from the T perspective because I think that's when he flourishes the most. That's when you see him utilizing his abilities as a very versatile player and, can be both a guy holding a MAC 10 in one round and an op in another. And I think in this T side, we're probably going to see him pick up the op when it's around. But historically, G2 have not used an op on T side Inferno, even with Kenny S on the team. He was mostly rifling, usually throwing a ton of support grenades. And now that AMANEK is kind of his player in this situation, I think we'll see something similar, but probably a lot more entry work from AMANEK compared to the way compared to Kenny S. And I would also like to say that overall, G2 have made leaps and bounds to become an insanely good team. Overall, I really was doubtful in this project with the pickup of Nico after the first few chunk of events where things weren't going well. Then Hunter started playing badly, and then of course they tried to have Nico op, which was a huge disaster. And now that AMANEK is opping, he's become good at it. Jax got very good again in his role, though he's still showing a bit of inconsistency in my opinion. Nico, Hunter, Nexa, all very, very strong. I think the calling has been great, and the team as a whole is obviously they made it to the they made it to the Kato final last year, and for what it's worth, they made it to the final this year, even though they're a completely different team than they were last year. But still, an impressive result to do on LAN. So why don't we go ahead and watch this game? And there are a couple pieces of news maybe we can talk about briefly here. Oplano is signing with Nordavind, and it's been a while that we've been waiting to see they're in negotiation, and it's been a while to see whether or not, who Oplano would end up signing with. So this is the organization that they found, and of course, Nordavind have put their previous team on the transfer list, and Oplano are coming in to be signed. What this means for Oplano is I have no idea. I think that they are going to be competing in Europe. I'm imagining they're going to be competing in Europe, which is probably bad for NA, another team, out of the region, if they are going to go there. And then we have Bad News Bears to get Junior in place of Peter, who has officially retired from CSGO after a very long career as one of the more popular North American players. And, was one of the guys, for those of you who missed it earlier on, who put on a couple of performances that made us think that this was going to be kind of the skadoodle to come after him, if that makes sense. The upper to come out of North America, Dirty Peak Pete, as they called him in Rank S back in the day. He's the guy who I think was somebody that we thought was going to end up on kind of the best team for a while and was one of the more impressive players from our region. He's been playing for a while. It didn't really feel like Bad News Bears, with Peter, we're going to reach incredible heights, of course. I mean, that might be an unrealistic expectation. And he cited that he's kind of moved himself off the team to make space for someone who might be able to go farther with them. And, it makes sense from all kinds of positions. But I think this is a very mature move from Peter. And, he's already, I think, done a lot in this game. I mean, what can you say? He's done so much. So that's farewell to Peter in a sensible, I think, situation where he's opting to retire. But on the bright side for Bad News Bears, we have Junior coming in, who is, not sure, hopefully not nearly at his peak in his career. And Junior had a chance to play on Furia, which is a it's an insane opportunity to attempt to play on Furia, and it did feel like Junior was the kind of opper who would be good. I would describe him as an explosive opper who would be good in situations that Furia could put him in. But I honestly, I think it was pretty clear his identity on the team was lost a little bit when we watched their games. It felt like that's probably the only team that you could put Junior on where he might look like the least aggressive player in some rounds, you know. So I think there was the chemistry wasn't really there. I think the thing is with Furia, where they epitomize like from what I've read in my YouTube comments is that Furia have epitomized the Brazilian pug style and it brought it all the way up into pro level CS with some very, very talented players, but they kept a lot of the heart of the way that they played in their pug systems growing up or whatever in their team as a unit, as a pro team. And Junior obviously hasn't been a part of that. I mean, the whole style of Brazilian CS coming into North America changed and shaped the way that all teams played in North America. And in my opinion, they're a huge reason why, you know, NA was able to win a major because they brought a level of work ethic. They were, you know, Elige said that the Brazilian teams are the ones who are scrimming 10 hours a day, so you could scrim them anytime, and they're the only teams they wanted to play. They played with a consistently, you know, rampant aggression in all of their games that kept you on your toes. Infamously with Fallen's teams, they would, you know, they were some of the best at reclaiming map control on CT sides way back in the day, and that's what made them the scariest when they knew how to find those gaps all the time and were brave enough to take it at the highest level. I think that's how they scored their majors. But like, that's not something culturally that, you know, came up in our system. But, you know, I think Junior was very popular and did a good job of gelling with the team as a unit. But in terms of play style, I feel like looked uncomfortable, didn't put the results we expect of him. And I really think that Junior can be an incredibly strong opper on a very strong team. So I'm looking forward to what he does next. But for the meantime, it's great to see him competing again here on Bad News Bears. So that's it about Oplano Jr., Peter's retirement. I'll link this article in the description. Pros comment on the state of Ancient. And yeah, let's hop into the game. So I did a little bit backwards here. I talked about AMANEK and then talked about the news. But now we're going to go ahead and hop into the game and watch AMAGod play. AMAGod. He's a god, not me. Why don't we take a look? Well, we can really see my monitor in the shot. Okay. So, if you remember, this game was a heater, first of all. It was an unreal performance from kind of everyone in the server. It was a show. It was a show. And this was the first time in the 4 times that G2 had played Gambit online before this. This is the 5th time and the only time that G2 beat Gambit. So this was a huge feat, but it was also one of the maps on one of the series that defined, you know, the difference between playing online versus on LAN, the small buff that G2 may have gotten playing in a situation like this. We covered it with the Nico video, how good he looked in a LAN situation. And this is not to say that Gambit by any means played badly. And there are a lot of teams that did not even make playoffs, and Gambit soared right past them. But I don't think it was a coincidence that Gambit, you know, were maybe 5% worse in this series and ended up losing. To G2, who, again, had never beat them. Out of the 4 series that they played, this is a beautiful kill, by the way. Out of the 4 series that they played, we had G2 win 1 single map, and I think it was Train, while Train was still in the pool. So now that was even out, there was even less chance that this was possible, and yet G2 obviously are able to win 2 maps in the series. So that means a whole hell of a lot. And this is also why we're showcasing AMANEK, because they had to work hard for the rounds that they got in this first half, but AMANEK was a player who was the focal point of this half, I think, for many different reasons. So what do we know about AMANEK on T sides in general? Well, he is a guy who will wear many different hats in one round. He'll be the guy who will go and pick up a Mac 10 when the rest of his team has AKs. He's the guy who'll do a lot of entry work. He obviously knows how to op better than anyone on this team, and he can also just play that in-between role of having a rifle, you know, being third in if he needs to. And in Counter-Strike, Sometimes you always have to be doing something new. You know, you have to be ready to be able to do everything. So the setup right now, and also this is a map that I really love from G2 right now. I feel like they're trying very, very hard on this map. They made a ton of strides to improve, and I've looked a lot more closely at their CT side than I have their T side. But I've had far less questions about their T side when they're playing well in general. We see there they kind of have this pincer setup on mid where they have Hunter watching the back entrance of halls, and then AMANEK making sure that no one can run down mid. The Smalley lands on the top of second oranges, and the idea is that if it lands there, number one, you can't stand on the top of second oranges, and then number two, it mollies both behind second oranges and in front of second oranges, so first oranges. And this actually has a couple of instructive points here. So this smoke that you see from the CT perspective, or from the T perspective, that's connecting the emo pillar and quad. This is the smoke that everyone's throwing now, right? They have been for months now, but this is the smoke that everyone throws on the CT side, especially when they let the full exec come. And people are not fighting for banana control as much and letting the full exec come, throwing smokes like this down because, number one, if Molly lands anywhere around here, the smoke will put it out. And also, it connects two pieces of cover, which gives you a really big area of space where, you can call your own. But okay. We've talked about this before as well with entry pathing. So getting over across the pool, jumping up on the coffins where the bomb plant would normally go down, and then approaching this smoke and oranges is the idea. But we saw the molly went down first, second oranges. We're trusting that. We're not clearing that. And now AMANEK is coming in to wrap the site. And the peak comes through. That bomb needs to get planted, and Inters plays it perfectly. And we can see why this area is so strong. That pillar alone was powerful enough for Stewie to hold down the bomb site versus Big when they were doing full execs every single round. That one pillar could block all the flashes, wasn't often mollied, allowed you to peek from both sides of cover, and it was really strong. But now you throw that smoke down, and they don't know when you're going to peek, and if you're going to be in the smoke on the other side of quad or on that side of the pillar, and things get a whole lot more difficult for you when you're trying to approach onto the site. So that's an important smoke to remember. And obviously the utility we saw from AMANEK was also important. So here's a round where the utility is light. AMANEK has armor and the smoke and a molly. And sometimes you don't want to think too hard about what the fakes look like in rounds like this. But one thing that's important to note is how we're clearing out angles, right? Like, we don't throw that Molotov for no reason at all. What's really important in certain situations like this is eliminating crossfires right before you attack something. So if AMANEK throws that molly and then there's no response, then your team coming out can just hard clear the close right pocket and then start to walk up. AMANEK throws a smoke down that lands in front of the library to make it look like it's a B split, and now they're going to go over towards B. But the idea from that smoke is not necessarily it's definitely not to attract people towards A. It's to stop the guy who's on A to have vision so that his rotation is slowed down. But it is still kind of a Hail Mary. And now AMANEK comes through, and then I think here, see, Jax kills Hobbit, Nafany kills AMANEK. So we already know that Nafany is not the guy who just died in CT spawn. So this gives some info that, okay, here he's up on the boost. And that's what's really important. So you have this round where AMANEK literally buys armor so that if someone dies, he can pick up a gun and use it, like an AK. But he's also here to just throw his utility and then be the guy to simply have the best comms in that situation. Say, okay, CT spawn, call something wherever he dies. Because even if a player kills you and doesn't take any damage, they give away something. And that something is information. And that information could be enough to do what they just did. Get a bomb plant or even win the round. So we'll see here. This isn't a specific gimmick or strat that G2 will do. It's just a smart thing that, teams do. And that's if you don't think someone's going to play in an area and you go and clear it out and just confirm that, then that's a certain amount of information that the CTs don't have. Like, it's that simple, right? If let's say the other team you're playing against doesn't play halls that often, or let's say we know Gambit, for example. They play without a lot of info often, so that means definitely not, too many hall setups. So it doesn't cost us much. We have time to do it. Why don't we clear out halls just to make sure? And then we have a lot of guaranteed info on the approach, okay? So it doesn't mean that they can't re-aggress halls or anything like that. But for that moment, hey, we took a peek. There was no one there. That's kind of a little bit of sweat off the brow. So now we can move into, potentially going out for a side exec. And here, walking up mid is so powerful, especially when you know there might be some kind of passive setup. And oh my god, AMANEK gets the instant headshot. I mean, that he made the Tech 9 look like it was an automatic weapon on Shiro. And then they even know exactly where Axel is going to be. You see how he's holding that? Oh, what a round from AMANEK already. He's got the rotation down on Hobbit, the opening kill, and damage on the other guy. And again, what did I just say? Even if you don't get the kill, the guy who kills you has to give away something that's information. So they know 3v1. They know exactly where he is. They don't let this gun go away, and they win the round. So, of course, huge impact here from AMANEK. And that's a great way to punish a to punish a passive setup, is to walk around a corner tight. If you see no one's holding onto mid control at all, boom, you just explode. Like, at that moment, Gambit, we're probably playing a little bit too passive, especially if they're not smoking you off on Arch. All right, this is to make it look like a running strat, I believe, because this molly lands in front of the porch, and Nexa calls a really fantastic running strat here. So these nades are just a feign. They throw it, but they don't go to clear out the nades or anything like that. They throw it just to try to bait out some Molotovs from Gambit. And I don't think there was too much of a reaction. So this is actually, good call from Gambit that they read into this correctly. Don't overburn their utility. But again, another situation where they've got him back on the site. And you see AMANEK, the entry fragger, going out with a flash. Trying to post up, waiting for the smokes. And everything is on the fly to not allow themselves to be telegraphed. Okay, so this is a very, very interesting spot, right? Because I've talked about this before, but one smoke can counter out infinite smokes. Okay, if they throw this Moto smoke and you were intending to wrap Arch, then and you wasted 2 smokes, smoking CT and smoking Library, it puts you in a position like we talked about yesterday with Magic's on that mid B setup. Once your smokes go up, you are now exposed to the Library and exposed to the CT walk-in. And yes, you can take the A site, but now the flanks are potential danger. So it's really important for the CTs to think about their counter utility like this. And they have a big advantage when it comes to reacting. So this is a very, very, fast Moto smoke. And I actually, not entirely sure that the CTs threw this, but it really feels like it because things have slowed down. And even the re-smoke comes out on Moto, and they leave AMANEK, who you can tell clearly looks a little bit uncomfortable. He's got to worry about his flank, but also the idea that someone is here inside of the Library. And I think his plan is to not move at all. Like they're going to go ahead and take the site without him, and he's going to try to win this duel. And god damn it, Nafany with the mouse wheel ends up jumping in Library. Hobbit trades, but now they've pushed up, and Mini Pit's dead. Whole site's taken. This is a powerful crunch, and it does help a lot to know that they took Arch control. They got that far ahead. There's no immediate rotations. The A-site players are isolated, and there's 4 Ts who are grouped up going lane halls that can attack together. So this is a super cool... That was just a super cool round from G2 anyway. And, I mean, half the battle is staying composed sometimes, right? If you feel like the other team is anti-stratting you and whatever, I mean, don't give people too much credit sometimes. When you see an intimidating smoke or whatever, realize there's still only 5 players on the map. They're still human. They didn't want to give you that Arch control. You could stick to the game plan and still maybe win the round. Now, here's what we see. It's another round where, again, the conditioning is actually very complicated when it comes to G2. They're very hard to read, I would say, when it comes to how they've spread the map so far. We've seen a few different looks at this point. We've seen that Halls has actually been able to be taken, and a lot of the map control that G2 are getting, they're getting without any nades whatsoever. They just walk here in the halls. So they throw a small B fake, and we're probably going to have a flash come out from lane and also off the chimney, and there's Nexa to throw that flash. And AMANEK, I think he gets collateraled in the leg from Shiro and hits the ground and dies. I think that's what happened just now. Because his teammate died. There's only one op shot. All right, so let's see what the change of pace here is for G2 with AMANEK up in front again. They're not worrying about making this a clandestine operation of the halls. They're just going quick. This angle is the important one, and a fantastic entry on the Inters. And this close setup. All right, that position that we just saw Nafany die in it's getting used a lot. Even G2 themselves are using this position a ton. Because right now, probably the most powerful T-smoke that you can throw that's easy, that's super hard to counter, is just the Arch Smoke. Because people are playing lane less aggressively, bracket less aggressively in general. The Arch Smoke that comes down, it's usually like, there's usually somebody behind it like 50% of the time at the moment. So now people are just actually playing up close on this angle. We'll see we'll see Rops play here. We'll see G2 use this position a lot. And now we see Nafany play it. But of course, it has its follies. Like Nico comes through with the flash onto top mid. They break open bracket. And with this kill, I mean, the round is over, right? Like they can't actually... There's just too many G2 players that are too sharp right now coming at full speed. Honestly, G2 are such a fun team to watch. Like when it looks good, it looks great. I love their style of calling. Nexa is still one of my favorite callers. And sometimes it doesn't look great, but they're still very firmly the third best team in the world, if not second. Everybody's scared of them. Things are coming together, and it looks like people have found a good rhythm with the roles. I really thought that Nico was going to take too much space, and Hunter is already good enough, and they're losing Kenny, and things were just going to get too jumbled. But they figured it out in a real way. Very impressive, honestly. So again, we're always throwing these in same nades, and it's really important to default to throw some of the same nades all the time, even if they're not going to use them per se. Because the moment you don't throw them, that can be info, right? So it might seem like, oh, you're wasting a Molotov, you're throwing the same flash. You know they're not going to push. But the audible matters to the team that's waiting, right? That can affect the setup. So if you throw the same thing every single time, there's no psychology that they can use to figure out what you're going to do next. If you change up when you're throwing it, you can use that to your advantage too. But this is just to say you might get some more consistency out of the reactions if you throw the same utility every single round instead of changing it. So there are certain nades that you want to do that with. So here's just the Arch Smoke come down. Again, really important smoke to be throwing. It's so stupid because this is like the #1 smoke you throw on the map in its history. But in my opinion, these days, the Arch Smoke is more valuable than it's ever been. It's one of the hardest smokes to kind of counter that's actually relevant, that's really important in a meta right now where teams are playing way back in sites. So G2 have done a fantastic job of conditioning. They've got Gambit scared of playing halls. They've walked up lane a number of times now, and they've also just decimated them on a full bracket setup. So I love this call to try to go B. And with banana control in this situation, the only thing counting against them right now is the clock and the idea that Gambit might stack their site. That's the scariest part about being a T right now, is that people are very, very inclined to just simply stack when they have a read. But you can hear the guns aren't very good here for Gambit. So they throw the full exec. And then the nades are so potent in this position with like the 5 players here that they don't even have to clear out positions. Because let's say they throw the molly down on Emo, they throw the molly down on quad, and there's no smoke. There's no one standing there. You know, they don't have to go back and clear it. So the full execs on B are really, really, really powerful. So again, exact same grenades, same pathing. Sometimes he has 2 different ways to get into hall. Sometimes he's jumping up, sometimes he's going at the long haul. And conversely, Gambit are throwing this hall smoke every once in a while. And this is, of course, a little bit scary because the way they throw it. And it's, ooh, another fantastic flash. They break the setup up, okay? So this is huge. So, at moments like this, it's almost as good as getting the kill sometimes to get info like this. Because they had a setup that they wanted to keep for a second, and wherever you see a CT standing at this level, that there's a whole system behind where that CT is standing that gives value to that CT, or like gives value to the rest of his team. So a lot of times, especially if you watch the demos or the teams are preparing, they can see, okay, this guy's in this position, here's where his 2 friends are as well, without even finding them. And so sometimes it's as big of an advantage to be able to take this much map control this fast and push someone off of a position you know they want to stand in, and then be able to attack onto a site. And this is kind of an interesting way to do it where they're very, very split up. It looks like Shiro is still alive. I don't think he got traded out. Axel was the one, I guess, who falls back, but they died in the pit. And in this spot. I guess they're just trying to hold on to map. There's still Shiro, I think, alive in the site. Jax has a smoke. I think it, probably makes sense to try to... Oof, they just get 2K'd. All right, they actually were waiting a lot here. And I felt like they had a definite advantage, especially with that opening kill, to come in and try to close out. I think this would have been a better spot for, first of all, for Jax to use his smoke to re-smoke library or whatever, and to continue on with that crunch with all their players, even though they should have been able to trade out efficiently there. So that's definitely not a great round from G2 overall, even though they got such a strong, position really, really quickly. And you have to say that outside of the actual kills they've got in the opening setups, they've won. Mentally, they've won. They were able to walk up lane, pop flash lane and kill a bunch of players, walk up lane 2 times, see nobody. This is winning the opening round. This is almost as good as getting the opening kill. That's another position where they totally read the setup. They flash the Opera off or the Rifler or whatever. They get into lane. It's another position they're very much winning to start things off. So here again, AMANEK is throwing this Molotov that's supposed to push an Opera back from peeking lane. And then they go to approach it. Again, the arch smoke comes down. We're seeing no one here at the moment. Now, one of the most nerve-inducing positions for a T to be in this spot is to sit at the top of mid. And this is already a very, very, very hard round to read, I would say. Look how many places G2 have searched for and cleared out. We see absolutely no Gambit presence whatsoever. As cool as that is for G2, it's also terrifying, right? Because they still have 5 players alive. So there it is. We see the trajectory of the bounce for the Molotov that comes down. And now we'll smoke out Graveyard and push AMANEK over to clear out Small Pit. An insane clear on Axile, and enters 3Ks. Okay. With their numbers up, they end up winning the round. They have 5v4, and they're already happy to play that setup in a 5v5. So, no surprise they won. But that setup almost fell apart with the Axile kill on Pit. A couple of fantastic entries for AMANEK in this half. And you could see by the way AMANEK has killed them that it hasn't been flick shots. It's been really good pre-aims, both to the player who's under porch and Axile right there in Pit. He's both times swung directly into them with the perfect crosshair placement. So now the tempo change. You can feel this is a little bit faster than we've seen already. One player spotted. AMANEK looking to push potentially through the CT spawn now. Okay, he just gets caught up in the smoke and decides not to come out. This causes problems, and they can't hold. So this is simply just a tempo change here from G2. They haven't executed this early. It's super important to have tempo changes on your T side, because if you don't do that, then the other team will just hold their grenades for the exact same amount of time every round. So now, since they did that, in the future, Gambit might be throwing their utility preemptively. And there's obviously a difference between the tempo change in winning and the tempo change in losing, because if they throw that tempo change but they don't win, it doesn't actually... It's a mental win as well as a literal round win for Gambit as well, so they can be less scared of that idea and save their utility still. Oh, that's a great trade. Inter's falling off Valk. If Inter stays alive, this is a whole different round. A whole different round. So let's see what they do off this. They know that this is a moment where they have to worry about a bit of desperation from Gambit, where they're in a losing spot. The Pit player's dead. They're very vulnerable towards Pit. It's the hardest rotation back over from B to get into. So they know for a while, probably no one's going to cross there unless there's somebody in there already. And they hunt this flank down. They get Hobbit. This is huge. Jax is low inside a boiler, and he's important in this position because he can hear rotation, so he can also flank. But oh wow, okay. They went to C. I think they went to just even throw a fake at B, and they see Shiro, and he actually just hits a running headshot as he's trying to leave. This is what's called the window flash for establishing on banana control. It goes really, really deep from the T's perspective. You can't really throw that for yourself on the same timing. For the CT perspective, sorry. So you have someone sit there to help you to deny the peaks on banana early on. And oh my god, AMANEK just jiggles Axile inside of the window room, kills him, and has 4 HP. Axile, that's a keyboard slamming moment for sure. That's a keyboard slamming moment. We've all been there. Yeah, you can really see the versatility from AMANEK, where he's done so many roles already, so many different positions, so many different tempos. He's pretty everywhere. He doesn't have the same routine every single round, even though he throws a couple of similar grenades. Again, it's really this entry work. I think that's shining above anything else. Let's see if he closes out on this one. Super careful above it. Hobbit wins the round. 2 rounds left in the half. And this, again, guys, this is a game that goes 16-14 in favor of G2. So razor thin margins. And this half from AMANEK is so impactful, brings him this many rounds. I think this is one of the rounds where your opponents are either at a really, really big utility disadvantage or rifle disadvantage, or they're saving completely for the last round. So you're trying to get as much info as you can for free. You really don't want to take too long, though. I think that's key, because pistols get stronger, I think, the later in the round that it gets. Especially your opponents are more prone to gambling. So see if AMANEK commits forward off of this. Flash comes through. He eats it, but he's still here fighting a little bit. It sounded like he took some damage, but no, he's out. 15 seconds. They've got to explode. This is very scary, you know, from G2. Yeah, okay. I'm not surprised that this goes sour. They still could get the entries, but they can't plant the bomb anymore. So yeah, they messed this up. It's not an anti-eco, but whenever it gets this late, you can't clear at all the angles you want to, you know. I really think the sweet spot for entering a site is probably like 35 seconds, but sometimes you can't do the same thing. It's just how Counter-Strike works. You can't do the same thing, even if it's like objectively the most sensible thing, because then it's a piece of info that the other teams know, right? So sometimes you do execute really late, but ideally, in my opinion, you most of the time you avoid going in that late, because then your entry fraggers are just set up to fail. And we all know how important the opening kill is in CSGO. At this level especially. We're talking between 70 and 80% win rate for the team with the opening kill. Across all the rounds they win. Oh, this setup gets jiggle peeked again. That is so well done from AMANEK. He doesn't fall to it. They even wait patiently for that moment. And this is a tricky peek from Hunter. And honestly, I can't wait to watch a Hunter demo, because I don't think we've done one yet. We might have done one a while ago. But I think it's definitely about time we watch a Hunter demo as well. We'll see. He gets beaten out. He's on low HP, so he tries to go for a gimmick play. I think Nexa, he's actually sitting on an incendiary and a Molotov as well. Molotov in hand. Now he's in a pretty good spot. I would give him 50% chance, I would say, to win this from this position, because a huge odds to win the first duel. And 50-50 on the next. We'll see if he gets out dueled here. Oh, he doesn't let go of that. Okay, the defuse comes in. Hobbit remollies Big Pit. That's very annoying. If AMANEK had that pre-prepared, he would have been able to deal with that. But yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. But yeah, that's it. That's the AMANEK T side. A really, really strong demo. I think I was a little bit disappointed with when we did Brokey week back like last year, but I feel like if I did AMANEK week, I would only grow to love him more. So maybe AMANEK week is the new, we need to get that trending. I think that makes a lot more sense. We saw how important the entries were, and the info that he got, and you know, yeah, what the value is that AMANEK brings outside of being their core opper, I guess. Now, I mean, now that he has so much versatility, especially on a map like Inferno, where he's not opping on T side unless he potentially picks it up. So he can just provide all that same value he used to have as just a great rifler and a very smart rifler, and really enforce an important map in their pool. So I hope you enjoyed that. I really did. And if you've got a player you want to watch, let me know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys again for another demo soon.